Right then, good morning everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. In today's 4PS Know-How webinar, we're going to be looking at managing approvals in 4PS Construct. As some of you might know, my name is Adam and I'm part of the 4PS account management team. And I'm joined this morning by our 4PS pre-sales manager, Richard Vernon. I'll pass you over to Rich in just a second, just to go through the agenda. So for those who haven't been on our webinars before, we ask that you forward any questions directly to me once the webinar's over. This way we can just save on a bit of time and make sure that we don't overrun. And I'll put my contact details up on the screen once the demonstration is over. Also, just so you know, this session is being recorded and will be available to rewatch on our website in the very near future. And we're looking for today's webinar to last around 30 minutes. So if you're set, Rich, it's over to you and we'll get going.
Good morning, everyone. Well, so approvals in 4PS we're looking at this morning. First of all, I just wanted to overview it and give you some of the sort of overview ways that it's working, some of the things it's trying to achieve, and go into a little bit of the setup screens in the product after that, so you can see where some of the configuration takes place. But we're going to step through a typical day-to-day process of somebody putting an order on, for example, and then going through the process of getting it approved. And then we'll just wrap up by kind of reviewing what we've done. Okay, so we start off with a bit of an overview of the approvals. So what are they? So they're a set of rules that you can put into 4PS, and they control approvals in the system. Now, the aim of these things is to try and get away from the fact that a lot of people do this kind of stuff, and then we're talking to small companies, medium companies, large companies, and still across all that range, we find there's a lot of people that still traditionally, print a lot of things off, get invoices signed manually, they get the things stamped with people signing it. And that's all great, but it does create an awful lot of manual work, a lot of, delays while bits of paper are kicking around, they've got to be filed, they've got to be kept. And it's all a little bit expensive and time consuming and probably not very effective. So 4PS aims to get rid of that. So we do everything electronically. So there's no bits of paper being signed or kicking around. And everything's really efficient. And it can apply, it's very flexible in the way that you can set it up. So you can apply it at lots of different levels. So you can see the list there on the bottom and left of the screen. You've got things like purchase requisitions can have approvals put on them, advice orders, purchase actions, quotes, orders, invoices, time for all those different kind of things that are listed there can have this standard approval process applied to it. So you could just apply it to one of those. You could just apply it to orders. It's very common for people to apply an invoicing stage so that people can approve invoices. So you can have it maybe at that stage as well, or you could add it at any level or any combination of those particular levels that you could put it on. So 4PS gives you some ways of configuring those workflows. And so you don't have to have anything written by us. There's nothing bespoke going on here. It's all completely standard configuration within 4PS. And one of the things that you can do within that configuration is that you can link the approval to roles within the project. So rather than saying a particular person has a value that they can approve and any approval up to that amount goes to them, it actually binds it to the actual project where, say, the purchase order, for example, is being placed against. And it will look up roles in the project and then search for those people to be the approvers. So if it's not your project, you don't get bothered with the approval, and you can only approve things that are relevant to you. You can also apply filters. So you can have a whole set of filters set up if you wanted to, where you could filter such things as, like on here we've got supplier, dimensions, plant type, project. So if you, for example, were posting to a cost object in the system that was a fabrication or a technical cost object, for example, you could invoke a set of rules. But if you're just posting for something else, you can invoke a different set of rules. So the whole thing is really flexible in the way that you can configure it. And you control the number of approval stages as well. So you control whether you have a lot of different people that need to approve things, or there's one. You've got complete flexibility over the way that that is set up. So we'll we'll show you that. You'll see that in the setup when we go through. So I think if we get into that, so what I'm going to do is just come out of the PowerPoint for a moment. And what I've actually got here is I've got a number of different users that I've got set up using 4PS. I've got over here in Chrome, my Chrome browser, I'm going to resume that. I've got a user called Scott. Okay, now Scott in my system is a buyer, is a site manager, that type of person, and he doesn't have any approval level. So up here, we know we're in Scott when we click on the little man at the top there, and it comes up with Scott K as his login. Over here on the Firefox browser, I've got another user. This one's Ian, and Ian does have an approval level, and we'll show you the way that that's set up in a moment. Now, I'm going to also try and be clever, and I'm going to have my third user set up to run through the mobile. So we'll start that up when we come around to doing some approvals for them shortly. But so I've got, bear that in mind when we're going through. I've got 3 different users that I'm using in order to sort of use this this approval workflow. Now, this is some of the background setup that you need. If I go into a thing called workflows. Now, workflows, you can see here, there's a whole load of different things that you can set a workflow up against, an approval workflow. So you can see you've got sales documents, summary documents, purchase and payables, purchase orders, advice lines, all that type of stuff. You've got a whole load of different type of workflows that you can enable. So on the right-hand side, you see this enabled flag. That one is set to yes. So purchase order approval is turned on at the moment, and that is the key. It's only the ones that are turned on that actually do anything, that are actually used in the system. If I go and edit that particular workflow, so you can see we've got a purchase order approval workflow in here. You can see that you've got a workflow system going through. So if I click on any of these, on the right-hand side, you can see that when an approval request is approved, it releases the document. When it's rejected, it does these various tasks over here. Now, generally speaking, we've set up a whole load of these workflows for you to use, and I think 90 to 95% of the time, just getting those out of the box will give you a sensible workflow through approvals, and you wouldn't need to really play about with this, really, other than ticking this box up here called enabled and getting it going. Okay, once you've done that, it's active and it's going to run through the rules that you then configure. And those rules that you configure that layer on top of this are in a different screen. They're in one over here called purchase. Approval rules. So I've got approval rules for purchase orders. In fact, that's a bit of a generic comment because it applies to a whole load of different, you can put this in for requisitions, purchase actions, all that type of thing can sit in here as well. Now, this is the screen where you actually configure how the rules are going to work. So let me just explain a couple of bits of it. You see on this approval level on the left-hand side, I've got approval level 1 type project. So where you've got project in there, that means that if you're applying, say, a purchase order that has a project code associated with it, it's going to invoke the rules under the project heading. If it doesn't have a project, it will go to the all rules. If it's a service item that you're dealing with, it will go down to the service items down here. So the project rules, we've got the 2 at the top there, we've got the header and the line. And there's something about the system, you have to have both in there. You can have line level approval where you approve individual lines of orders. This one is configured here just to approve at the header level. So you can see over on the right-hand side, over here, the no approval is actually ticked for the line. So that's saying you don't really need to approve each individual line, you just need to approve the header. And that's good. Now, the other thing about this is you've got another set of rules down here. You've got project with an approval level 1, and you've got project down here with an approval level 2. Now, what that means is that it's going to use the first rule first, the approval level 1, and once that approval is done, it's going to go down to approval level 2. So you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You could have a whole load of approval rules configured in the system. So and what that would mean is that the approval would need to go to the first person, then on to the second, then on to the third and the fourth, etc., etc. You you can set those all to be 1. So that approval level there, that was set to 1, and this second set of 1 down here was also set to 1. That would mean the same set of people still need to approve that order. So you'd still have, approval, you'd have person 1, person 2, person 3, person 4. But what it means is they could do it at any time. They could approve it in any order. If you put the approval levels in, it means it has to go through a sequence first. So the first person has to approve it, and goes on to the second person, on to the third, etc., etc. Okay, so you can configure it both ways. Now you might say, well, I want 4 or 5 people to be able to approve it, but I only want one of them to actually approve it. I don't need all 5 people to approve it. And if you want to do that, you use this thing over here called an approver group code. So you can see you've got one set up here called directors, and directors in there, if I just click open, you can go in. There's a group code in there. If I go into select from full list, I go and look at the members, you can see my directors list is made up of these couple of users in here. So if you've got that on the line, what that means is that either Jane or Mike, for example, in this case, can approve it. Either of them can approve it and it will be approved. With the way that we've set it up for the projects, it means that both the person at approval level 1 and the person at approval level 2 need to approve it. And person at level 1 has to do it first, and person at level 2 has to do it second. Okay, now who is that person that needs to approve? Well, if you look across the screen over here, we've got a thing called a project role. So that one is picking out the project manager. And at level 2, it's looking at the commercial director. Okay, so in those cases, what it's saying is that at the first stage, whoever is flagged on the project as being project manager will need to approve, and at the second level, who's flagged as the commercial director would need to approve. And you can also in there have minimum amounts and maximum amounts. So you can use that if for example, approval only really applied for values above £100, for example, or £1,000, or whatever number is appropriate. If you have that minimum amount in, it would only apply the rule for orders above that particular amount. So you could have a level of approval where they just put the order on and it goes through without needing approval because the value is too low. And that obviously can be different levels depending on the different roles. You can have different levels of or financial values set up. The other thing that I mentioned was this idea of having different rules with different filters on them. So we'll go up to the filters at the top. Now, you can see here, I'll just go under the table number, that I can apply a filter based on things like the supply code, the item code, the purchase header code, what type of asset is it, or whether it's a plant type. And what you can do is you can invoke the rule to apply to that particular filtered set of criteria. So if you're buying from a particular supplier and you know that particular supplier is a highly technical product that you buy from them, you can set a bunch of rules in there that requires more approval than if you're just buying aggregates or cable or something that you basically just go and buy and you can think about it later. Okay, so those rules get applied in those filters. Okay, now the only other thing that you needed to set up really in the system was actually flagging a bunch of users as approvers. So there's an approvers list. So in that approvers list, you set up a bunch of users. So if you're on the project role, but you're not in this approvers list, then you won't allow you to do the approval. So it's just one little bit of admin that you need to go in and make sure that those users are actually set up and flagged as being approvers as well. Okay, so we've got the configuration, we've got the workflow enabled for purchase orders. We've got our purchase order workflow in terms of who we want, the roles we want to approve at different levels. So we want the project manager over here and then the commercial manager. And we're pretty much good to go. So if we go back to our PowerPoint, the next thing we were going to do on here, after we've got the approval set up, and we've covered those, the approvers, the workflow enabled, the configured rules, the project roles are all good. The next thing on here is actually the day-to-day process. Okay, so What we're going to do is put on an order. We're going to create an order. We're going to send it for approval. We're going to see the status changing through the process. We're going to go and approve it as our different users. We're going to approve it as Ian, and we're going to approve it as Richard, because they're going to be set up as those roles on the project. And we're going to see it go through and become approved. Okay, so again, let's come out of here. And first of all, let's go into the Chrome browser. And let's go out of that order, because we're going to put a new one on. And let's have a look at a project first. So we're going to a project, and we're going to go and look at project number P01, this rail project down here. Okay, so let me go to the card. So I've got my rail project, P001. I'll just copy that. And you can see in the personnel, I've got project manager, Richard Vernon, EM0001. And I've got a commercial director over here, which is Ian Cowan. Let me just ignore Daniel, which is Ian Cowan. Okay, so those are the two roles that we've got in our workflow. We've got the project manager, who has to sign off first, and then the commercial director second. Okay, so let's go and put an order on. Go for the purchase order. We can select any supplier because we don't have a filter on for the supplier, so we can just choose anyone. So let's go for aggregate supplier, shall we? And details come through. I'm not going to linger too much on this. We're going to pick our project. Which is our rail project. And so it comes up on the line. I'm going to be a good boy and select an element for that project because I want this to actually flow through the system. Not really relevant for the approvals webinar, but it's good practice. And what I'm going to do is pick a cost object. So we're going here. I can pick anything now. I'll go for solar frames. You see, we've got our solar frames. I'm going to put a quantity. I want 10 of those, and they cost 3,000 each. I've got a £30,000 order. So my rule is at the first level, from 0 to 99999, if you can remember the setup, I need to get that approved. So just checking that I'm logged in as Scott. I am. So at this point in time, I've got my order that I've put together, but it's currently open. And I can't release it because I don't have permissions. I haven't got that approval level. So what I need to do is I need to go to Actions. I need to send for approval request at the top here. When I send for approval request, you can see on the actual order header that the status is now changed to pending approval. That's great. So I know that that's in the process. It's going off and it's being considered. But who's it being considered by? If I go to navigate, we know from our rules in the background that have been configured who those two people are. But the user can see them by going into approvals and seeing here that we've actually got Richard V, who is the first person in the sequence that needs to approve it. And we've got Ian C, who's the second person. And just to reiterate, if the sequence number there was 1 and 1, based on our rules, then they could approve those in any order. But the way I've created this one is that sequence number 1 is Richard, he has to approve it, and then it goes to Ian C to approve it afterwards. Okay, so how do those guys see it? But at the moment, Ian C doesn't see anything because it's not got to him yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to flick over to Richard. Now, Richard is out and about on the road, and he's going to fire up nav on his mobile. And we can see he's got 3 requests to approve that have come in. So we're going to see those requests. We've got 2 purchase requisitions that he's been thinking about since the 19th of November. But the new one that's come in on the 22nd of November is the order that we've just put on the system. So you can see you've got purchase order 76, which was the order we were putting on. You can go and have a look at the details of purchase order 76. You can go through, see all the line level, all the details that you can see on the purchase order in the system. You can see there. And if I go back to the front page, you can then, at the bottom, approve at the top there. So when he's approved it, it disappears from the list on the phone. So he's now only got the 2 requisitions remaining that he had before. And so he's done his bit, that's fine, he's approved it. So we're going to come out of here and see the effect of that. We'll go back to Scott on Chrome, and let's just reverse. Well, I've got this list of pending orders, just to make it easier to find. We'll go and have a look at 76, which is the one that we're dealing with, and have a look in Navigate approvals. We can see that Richard's approved it, but now it's down to Ian. So it still can't go forward. I still can't do anything with it until Ian has approved it. Now, one thing I didn't mention when I went through the workflows before, which was a bit remiss of me, was the fact that one of those stages can be you can trigger emails. So as well as getting it on your queues in your 4PS Role Center, you could receive an email, and also you can have an approval list you've got in the system, which is a common thing as well. But you could receive that the fact that you need to go and do an approval via an email. Okay, now, so Ian, where's Ian? He's over here in this browser, in the Firefox browser. So let's go to his home page. And we can see now he has an approval request. So let's go and have a look at that. Okay, we go in here, Ian Cowan, it's purchase order 76, which is the one that we were talking about. Now we can either approve it directly from here, or like we did in the phone, you can click on the document and you can see the details of it. You can see the solar frames, there's 10 of them for 30,000. You can see it's project number 1, the rail project. Yeah, you know, you're happy with all that, you can either approve it. We can go back to the front screen here and you can approve it from there. Now, a couple of other things that you can do is that you can delegate. So if you're unsure of whether you want to approve this or not, then rather than rejecting it, you could delegate it to another user. So you could just forward that on, and that full process flow will be shown through the system. Okay, so that full process flow of the fact that you've delegated it to another user, that user has got the approval, they may go and approve it at that stage. That is all documented in that approval list that we saw against the order as well. What I'm going to do though is just approve. Okay, you can see my list of outstanding approvals has gone down to 0. I'm going to come out of there, and Ian's done his bit, so thank you, Ian. And I'm going to go back to our friend Scott. Scott's got his order. Let's go and edit the order. Yeah, it's gone out because it's gone out of my pending approval list. It's now in my approved list. So let me just reverse the order of those. So we've got it there. Number 76 is now on my purchase orders approved list. If I go and edit that list there, this is my 76. It's my solar frames for 3,000, 30,000 pounds in total. And you can see that the status of that order is now released. So we're good to go forward. We can send it out. We can do our, we can receive against it, all that good stuff that you would normally do at this. Now, just to double check, you go into the approvals and you can see that both levels, Richard and Ian, have now got that approved in the system. Okay, so that's the day-to-day kind of approval process and how it works. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. Just to finish off. We've done all those bits. And in here, we just review what we've done. We've linked approvals to projects in this example, so it picks out from project roles in the system who needs to approve. We've kind of shown how it's highly configurable, how you can put in lots of rules, you can apply those rules to the approval, and you don't have to have bespoke workflows written by a developer. You can do them all within the configuration of the system. Hopefully it avoids costly procurement mistakes because people are more efficient with the approval. And you can see the Richard Vernon character was out and about on his phone, was able to check his order, get it approved, and move forward. But that's also true at all the stages. It's true of requisitions, or true of invoices, or subcontractor orders, or timesheets. You can very easily check what's going on in the system. So you've got credibility and confidence in what's happening in the system because it's dead easy to approve things. So you don't have to wait for bits of paper or anything. It's just there. And it's fully auditable. You can see at every stage we're recording who's approved, what approval, when it's stamped, when they've done the approval, so you can see it all at those different stages. And like I say, it's dead easy to use. So, Adam, you want to wrap up? There are your details.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Rich. I hope you all found that interesting and useful. So as I mentioned earlier, if you have got any questions or would like to know more, taking up my contact details on the screen now. Please do get in touch, either give me a call or drop me an email. I'll be more than happy to help you out. Keep your eyes open for details of our next 4PS Know-How webinar, which will be announced very soon. Also, be sure to check out our website for all of our previous webinars. We've just added another bunch of them, so go and take a look at some of the other topics that we've been covering. Once again, thank you for being with us this morning. Cheers, Rich. Have a great day, and we'll see you very soon.